My 5 biggest mistakes while running my Airbnb business. Let me save you the time, the heartache, the money. Learn from me and all the dumb stuff I did my first 5 years as an Airbnb host. My name's Sean Rocky Jeech. This is Airbnb Automated, and let's get to hosting. Welcome back, Airbnb family. So first of all, before we get started, like the video, you know that the YouTube algorithm pretty much commands it for this video to do well, and leave some comments. Comments really help with the video too, and you know it, Mr. Baker, I love how you just like write comment in there, so keep that up. So I've made a lot of mistakes, a lot of small ones, I think, because you know there are no bad mistakes. Let me also say that as long as you learn from them and you grow, you fail forward, mistakes can be good because you know the first person to make a mistake is the first person to learn, right? And then you have an advantage, right? You have like this knowledge equity above and beyond all the other Airbnb hosts in the world that are too afraid to make mistakes. Right? So first off, embrace mistakes. You're gonna make some, I've made a ton. I welcome them as a daily part of my growth process. But let me give you my 5 big ones because there's actually a ton to learn here. And you'd be surprised exactly how much things can unravel over the little bits. I'll even try to do this in chronological order. Mistake number 1 comes from my very first building. In 2014, I lived at that building. I ended up picking up a couple because I shipped in a guy and he worked for my media company, part of his relocation package. I signed a 1-year lease and had him as a tenant for 2 months. And that's really how I got started, is I needed to find something to do with these properties for like the 10 months that I was on the lease for. Fun. So where'd the mistake come in? I set these up, not with the intention of being Airbnb properties. So first off, I didn't have party prevention figured out. I didn't even think a party was possible. I had no clue that locals would book and like throw a rager. So inside of one studio, and this is like a 520 square foot studio, 60 people crammed into one studio and threw a massive party. There's like packets of what's that stuff, Kool-Aid, and then something called 20 grand, which is like a mix of like cognac and vodka and like all sorts of bottles and sticky stuff all over the place. And concierge at this high rise did not call me to tell me that a party was being thrown and that 60 people were going up to this unit. They just decided to report it to management later, right? I was out of the loop. So there's a few things that went wrong here, but overall the big mistake is I did not plan to prevent parties. And here's what I've learned. Here's what you can do to prevent some parties. Number 1, get a noise monitoring system. Point makes a great one. They also do like motion detection, humidity and temperature control. So there's extra things it does aside from just listening in to make sure that everything is at a decibel level or lower. And it sends you a push notification if somebody's being too loud. It also lets you know if the heat's on too high or if it's too cold, like somebody's blasting the AC. There's added benefits to the Point system. Discount code is Sean25. It's actually the cheapest way to get a Point system. Aside from, I think Airbnb might actually give you 1 device per Airbnb host for cheaper. I know that's kind of odd for me to tell you because I actually make a small commission if you buy with my Sean25 discount code, but there is an option for a cheaper Point right now. Airbnb is offering you the option of like noise aware Point or another one that I actually don't know much about. But so if you want to buy multiple, use my code. If you want to only buy one, go to Airbnb party prevention blog that they just released. So not only do you want to have anti-noise like software, but or hardware, you want to know the building. And if I could have told my concierge to call me at the first sign of trouble, I would have in advance. Like I would have traded almost anything to have had the foresight to know somebody was about to throw a party, because this party actually is what cost me my leases at this building. They non-renewed me because this was so bad. And so if I could have that concierge call me, then I could have prevented it. So first off, the noise aware, like the Point, the noise monitoring system would have allowed me to know a party was happening. And even if concierge didn't call me, I would have known and I would have like came to. But if I didn't have it, concierge would have called me if I only had like made friends with them. Third, I didn't have anti-party language in my Airbnb profile. And let me actually show you on the screen right now what I write my pre-booking message as, because I really think that this is one of my best and most favorite ways to prevent parties is just a simple pre-booking message. So copy that, paste it in yours, and that'll actually help you prevent parties as well. Mistake number 2 was right before the Super Bowl. I had a 2-bedroom apartment that I picked up, again, not for the purpose of Airbnb, because of my media company. I'm shipping in sales guys, and I turned that one into an Airbnb later, after it was like a boarding house for my sales guys, and then I gave it to a friend who like needed to get out of a bad situation. I let them rent it with a roommate. I had to evict that person, and they left that place trashed. So much for friends, right? But the problem here is I just accepted it for the state that it was in, and I did not spend 4 or 5 days like revamping it. I spent like a quick day trying to clean the walls, trying to clean the carpet, try to rearrange the furniture, and just get some extra things in there to quickly get it ready. I cut so many corners with that 2-bedroom apartment that it immediately got bad reviews. And this is the one apartment that cost me my Superhost status first. So at this time, I had like 8 or 9 listings, and I was Superhost. And then this one listing was so poorly managed and run because of how I took this dilapidated post-eviction property and just forced it onto the market. I did not get good reviews at all. And that cost me my Superhost status. So if I could go back and change that, I would have not rushed to put that property up. I would have instead like put a lot of love into it. I would have professionally had the carpets cleaned. I'd have the whole place repainted, fixed all the holes in the wall, touched everything up, and actually bought new furniture. I lost money. That's the only apartment that I've ever lost money on for multiple months in a row. And so my rent was over $2,400, and it was a 2-bedroom that could sleep 5 people because there's a queen in each bedroom and then a sofa. So after months and months of losing money, I decided to finally shut that listing down. I spent a week like redoing all the furniture. I redid the bedrooms. I moved 2 queens into each bedroom. So there was 4 queens, and then I made a sleeper sofa so this place could sleep 10. So it went from sleeping 5 to sleeping 10, and I revamped the place. I made the bedrooms look good. The living room still needed some work, but I was a new host, and obviously I'm doing much better now. But I made that place much better condition, took better photos, and I put it back on the market, and I started to profit about $800,000 a month with those changes. So if I had just initially, when that listing was brand new, had shut it down for a week after I evicted this girl, and I could have just like got everything done more quickly, or got everything done more appropriately, I wouldn't have lost money for 5 months. I would have actually like made money. So the amount of money I lost compared to what I could have gained was $12,000 plus in difference in revenue I would have made on Airbnb just by doing it better. And I would probably have still had Superhost status for a much longer period of time. So don't cut corners, don't race to put a listing up. If you've got a property that you've adopted that's like a troubled property, it's just better to get it all out of the way, right? Just do all the heavy work, do the stuff that sucks up front, and that way you're not trying to fix menial problems or clean things that are hard to clean in between guests, because once we were live and had guests in there, it was impossible to try to change anything. Now, you may remember this video that I've already done based on mistake number 3. I picked up a high-rise in Dallas where I was speaking to one agent of the property, and they gave me assurances that everything was good. Handshake deal. There was a 2 or 3 month long delay getting it set up. By the time we got that deal done, that original person was gone from the office. We set up the leases. We activated the leases after getting handed off to another member of management. And then lo and behold, we find out that there's a non-compete clause because there's already another company called Lyric, who you might see in the news now, who picked up property there as well. And they wrote like an exclusivity agreement into their deal. So first off, the property manager was not aware of what the leasing agent number 1 had told me, and he wasn't there to back me up. So now I've got to try to resell the property manager on letting me run my business while there's an exclusivity agreement for a company just like mine in the building. It was doomed to like die from the start. Our leases lasted like 3 weeks, and then they asked me to dissolve my 8 leases at that high rise because of the variables at play and the fact that one of my tenants got into a fight with an employee of the building. And this was 4th of July, the year that I expanded into Dallas. So this was fun. And so what I ended up having to do is I was in a situation where I had to move 8 apartments into another building within just a few days because they wanted to aggressively take back these leases and dissolve them. And they gave me a very short period of time to do so. So there's a cascade of mistakes in this. First off, I did not resell the building, right? I did not go back and start from scratch. When the one guy that we started negotiating with left, we did not go back and try to sell the building from scratch. And I remember having a conversation with my real estate agent. I'm like, you know what? I really feel uncomfortable about this deal. I even told him that. I remember that I'm like, I don't know. I don't feel good about this deal. I don't think it's going to go well. But I'm like, you know what, screw it. I've been doing so well and everything's gone my favor. Why not take the risk? And so I did not like trust my gut and like start from scratch with the building and try to hold their hand through the deal again and find another, what we call an internal champion. An internal champion in a sale is where somebody inside the organization you're trying to sell is the one that kind of like vouches for you and helps you get your sale done. In bigger organizations, it's important to find somebody inside of that company who likes you and wants the deal to go through, because otherwise you're just on the outside with no friends. And so I needed to kind of get a new internal champion, and I didn't. I skipped a step. I just signed the leases and kind of went off with, well, we talked to this other guy, and then that other guy wasn't around. So like, well, we have no clue what's going on. It became a big mess. So mistake number 3 is, again, I cut corners. I got overly optimistic. I moved in on a property. I didn't look both ways before crossing the street, and I got hit by a big truck on that one. And this actually leads me to a 4th mistake. See, what happened is when I had to move out of that property, I had all this furniture, right? I had like 8 couches that were exactly the same couch and all these like king size beds, and just everything was like uniform for the building. I then had to try to move out all of that furniture and then force fit it into a new property that is a completely different style, completely different floor plans, sizes. Instead of just having like 8 studios, I had like 4 1-bedrooms and 2 2-bedrooms or something like that, right? So I had 8 bedrooms total, but I had 6 total apartments, and the layouts were completely different. The fixtures were different. Everything was different. And so I basically, by shoving all this furniture that was mismatched into this new building, everything just looked like out of place. The design that I had envisioned for the high rise did not work in the mid-rise 2 miles away. So we went through months of just having like a poor layout. Everything looked kind of barren because a studio takes much less effort to furnish, right? You put a bed, you put a couch, a coffee table, small like dinette set, and wall mount the TV, and you can fill up a studio super fast, and that bed really helps make that space fill up, right? Well, with a 1-bedroom, you put that bed in a separate room. What do you have? In the living room, you've got a couch and a coffee table and a wall-mounted TV, and that's it. Now you've got a problem. That place will look so barren, nobody will want to stay there. So we had to pretty much invest like an extra $1,000, $1,500 per apartment to get them even up to normal, even up to some sort of like suitable standard, because the bedrooms needed extra stuff and the living rooms needed a lot of love. So the problem here is just by migrating one set of furniture to a new building, I pretty much adopted like underperforming listings, just like in Houston with that 2-bedroom that cost me Superhost. We had a flurry of guests go, well, these apartments are just underwhelming, right? And so we got a bunch of like mediocre reviews because we kind of like took it for what it was and just let it be bad. So don't settle for mediocre. Really like think ahead when you design your spaces, because if you have like a barren looking apartment, like an empty, like almost like a college male would furnish their apartment, you're not going to do well. Airbnb is so competitive now that like a well-designed space in professional photography is probably the biggest deal ever. Mistake number 5, you've seen a video for this also. This is when I got sued. All right, so let's talk about that. I picked up a building in Philadelphia. I negotiated 12 apartments on 1 floor from this guy. I think his name's Oren, and I think I can probably start talking about this now. We've been keeping this under wraps because there's a legal process here. So there's a gentleman named Oren. We negotiated 12 leases at a certain rent rate, and then we were going to get the 2nd month for free, and then the 1st month of year 2 and year 3, and then the last month of year of 3 free. So 4 free months in a 3-year lease. And so we take lease number 1. Lease number 1 is perfect, right? It doesn't prohibit us from doing our business. He gave me the lease concession where we agreed to have that 2nd month of rent free. Everything looked good on lease number 1. We sign that lease, we move in, we have all of our furniture gets shipped to, or all the main stuff gets shipped to like lease number 1. And so that one becomes like a storage unit as we start to pick up the rest of the leases. Well, there was a big delay. Leases 2 through 5, because we're picking up them in batches of 4, leases 2 through 5 were delayed. They're like, well, we'll have those leases to you on the 10th. And the 10th came and none. They're like, oh, we'll get them done to you soon. Well, the leases were supposed to start on the 15th, and we're supposed to have them on the 10th for review, right? And so we ordered a bunch of furniture that was arriving the 15th. And so what has happened essentially is it took them until the 15th to get us the leases. And so I am sitting in the leasing office of this building with Bob's Discount Furniture, shipping in sleeper sofas. They're outside at the loading dock waiting for us to give them like access into the building. And I don't even have keys. I can't actually like unlock the front door for these 4 apartments to ship the couches in. So I'm barking up the tree at the leasing office going, hey, I need the leases right now. Our leases start today. So what happens is they send me the 4 leases electronically. They do a couple sneaky things. First off, they write me in as a personal guarantor. So instead of it just my business, they write the business and Sean Rocky Cheech as the responsible parties, right? So they add me in as a personal guarantor without like me talking to me about it. Second, they did a new draft of the lease for the whole entire building, and they used that mock-up, like that building-wide lease for me. Instead of the lease that we first got, they used this like building-wide lease that had no Airbnb language in the lease. They put that in there. And then third, they omitted the concession agreement where my second month of rent was free. They did not include that in the contract. And so because I'm under what's legally called duress at this moment in time. If I don't get these leases signed and get the keys, I'm gonna lose my furniture shipment, and that's gonna cost me thousands of dollars for the delivery fees, because we paid over $1,000 just for the delivery of the stuff. We'd have to also get that stuff rescheduled, and that loss of time would have cost us money. So just so you all know what duress is, it's where a stronger party in a negotiation puts a weaker party in a situation where they will like lose money if they don't make a quick decision, and it does not allow them the opportunity to go through the due diligence process in the signing of this contract. So I was legally under duress, but I still made the mistake of allowing myself to get into a position of duress, signed these extra 4 leases that did not give me my second month of rent for free, that put me as a personal guarantor, and then put in like non-business friendly language. So what happens, right? We move in, we get all the furniture in. The guy, Oren, terminates the company that I negotiated my Airbnb agreement with, brings in Greystar as a management company, has them try to evict me, and this is where the lawsuit comes in. They have like pretty much Greystar going through this eviction process with me. I tell Greystar, no, we renegotiated this deal. Here's my paper trail for conversations. And then we pretty much had to take Greystar and this building to court. We showed them where the first lease was correct, and then I was arguing something called quantum merit, which doesn't actually apply completely in this case, but it was still arguable, that the other leases, because we did not renegotiate, should have still had the same agreement that we agreed upon. And you could actually argue fraudulent inducement here because they knew that I would not have agreed to the contracts, etc. So big legal battle stuff. But they decided to back off, and we agreed to dissolve those leases, and I've moved those leases to a new building. But now that I'm out of the building and I'm safe, I'm no longer like worried about getting kicked out faster. I can now pursue like my legal rights to loss on that. So I can now take a lawsuit against Oren, the building owner, for lying and causing fraud and doing what he did. So a big mistake here is you need to read your contracts. Always look inside your lease agreements to find out what you are and are not allowed to do, and then get it in writing. If you have an agreement between the building owner and you that you're gonna have certain rents for free, you're gonna have certain rights that the regular tenant doesn't have, you need to get that stuff written down, because if you end up in court like me, you don't want to have to be like some, catch me if you can, like smart, kind of slick person to get through it. You better have your stuff on paper, because if you're not, game to argue in the court of law on your rights as a tenant, you should make sure your paperwork's good so you don't have to play that game. So 5 of many mistakes, and more to come. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I think making mistakes is important. Just don't make any big ones, ones that'll put you out of business. You win some or you learn some, right? Jason Mraz quote. Thanks for watching Airbnb Automated. Remember to like the video, share with your friends, and I'll see you on the other side.